Hey, another morning. Still Sunday. Really bad sinus morning, so you're gonna just have to put up with the sniffles and stuff. And my cheap microphone set up. So this one is about the mining industry. Now, to talk about the mining industry, that is a huge word. Okay, that word encompasses oil well drilling. It encompasses deep sea mining, mountaintop mining, open pit mining, underground mining, and the types of mining done to harvest the mineral wealth of a planet. So we know these minerals tend to build up in areas and places that make it abundant enough to harvest. So instead of harvesting crops, we're harvesting minerals. This is part of terraforming because that's what we're doing to the planet. Our mark on the planet has been visible from space since before the pyramids and the Incans and Mayans. So, in our 20 million years of human getting here, I don't know how many millions is actual upright walkers like we are. We could have been spotted long ago by people looking just like we're looking. They might have already passed because of the time differences and how light travels. We don't know. But we do know it's possible. It's much more possible than other things. So that's what mining is. Mining is harvesting the resources of the planet. We harvest resources from all across the round globe and we bring them back here and we make things and we ship them elsewhere. We add value to the gold. We add value to the uranium. We add value to the oil and go off and sell it. Now, to do this takes large amounts of money. Billions of dollars of investment, resources, whether it's 10 people or 10,000 people, to go find these minerals to sell, to trade, to barter, to build with. So that's mining. Minings are corporate miners, or mines are corporations almost always. There's some type of business. They have a responsibility developed in the laws that created the corporations. So, what would that mean? It means that there's very few people with the wherewithal, the intelligence, the finances, and the long term backing to do these projects. It's a very small circle, very small. These are global industries delivering goods to your corner store. They're foundational things to our civilization. These are consumer goods in the end. So, mining is a huge global endeavor. We mine oil here now to export to other nations, which is very rare in our history. Raw oil, crude oils. Usually we're the ones taking those crude oils and turning them into something bigger and better, or one of our facilities elsewhere, or one of somebody else's facilities. So mining, it's a global issue. Just about everything we have and do is tied to a mine somewhere. just about everything. I mean, even trees planted in the soil are miners. They're harvesting elements from the planet, putting them up in the tree, and we eat the fruits. It's just how life works, that continuing cycle. So, mining, we've been doing forever. We can go back. Mining began sometime back when we invented potteries and clays and the furnaces and kilns to work with pottery and clays. And from there, some very intelligent people, over a great deal of time, figured out there was metals in there, and they could do something different than metals than they did with ceramics, but they didn't have these words. So this is the parallel parts of civilizations being built over time that seem missing from our history, because somehow the pottery that got better had to have been handed down and passed down through oral traditions. The metals that got better and more valuable got passed down through oral traditions, because it wasn't invented overnight. It was invented because somebody was poking in an old fire pit and found a lump of something. And they hammered on the lump, and it was different than a lump they'd met before, because there was no TV, no radio. There were stars. There were people figuring out calendars. There were people figuring out how to make pottery. There were people figuring out how to farm, animal husbandry, all oral traditions, all huge stories passed through time among all the other stories and traditions that were passed orally. When we started writing, it probably diluted these stories, and we know by now it has, because so many of them have been changed over time to fit into other belief systems. So previous gods have been absorbed into the victor who wrote history and become part of the traditions that help to build a new faith, a new religious tradition in the South Americas. And if you look at what we know about the previous, the Incans and the Mayans, they were pretty brutal towards the end. And they were brutal because of climate collapse. Their civilizations were collapsing because the climate changed, the weather changed, the growing changed, the herds' paths changed, and they diminished as they overhunted. And here we are today, learning from millions of years of the planet's history, and humans are such a small part. So I was watching Skylar Fiction, another person I enjoy. I do watch a lot of, I don't want to call them atheist channels, because that's just one of the many topics that they cover. So I'm not big on that label thing, but whatever. So every nuclear plant needs fuel. There's two types of fuel: uranium or cesium, that are prevalent today. Thorium would be a very small side product of that. And other isotopes. So lots of rabbit holes to travel into on this. So those mining industries almost have to work like they do. We want the gold for the woman's jewelry. We want the gold for the men's, or not. We want the gold for jewelry. We want the electronics for doing exactly what I'm doing now. We want the metal. We want the non-stick metal, so it's easier to clean our pans. And maybe we use less water for the non-stick metal. I don't know. So you get into cost-benefit analysis. But back to this mining thing. Most people are familiar with oil. Oil drilling is a form of mining. You're harvesting minerals. That's what mining is. So there's ocean drilling, there's land drilling. Two different environments to drill in, different set of starting rules. But once you get down into the rock, the rules get the same. And you drill. And you learn how to do horizontal drilling, which isn't a new trick. It was just a technique that got expanded on and made better. And then you add steam and water pressures, and you start to lift up a whole state hydraulically and try to pump out all the minerals under the state hydraulically. That is Oklahoma. The problem with Oklahoma isn't that it's being done, it's that it's being done very poorly. It's the leftovers of the Wild West out there with undocumented wells punching holes through the grounds that are being disturbed at rates never before talked about. So methane, CH4, some other things releases. A lot of stuff comes out of a hole. Don't let them just, well, you have to. It's not just CO2, it's not methane. Whatever is in that methane is whatever's down that hole, and that is a whole lot of other gases from xenon. Um, they test these things. They take samples of this stuff because they want to know what's down the hole. If that borehole hit a deposit of helium, the rules just changed. The rules just got even better for the oil company that's doing the drilling because they can stop there, start harvesting helium, and then go on about their business and look for whatever else they were. But helium deposits are at different layers typically. But still, on the way by, guess what? How the oil got there, the geology of the formation of the oils. And no, it's not dinosaur poop, unless you are being it's not bombastic. It's silly. So no, oil is not elephant poop. It's not whale poop. It is not. It is millions of years of accumulation. And I mentioned before, in a long time frame, this planet is a liquid, just like glass is a liquid. And time is the only thing that would show you that, unless you get into some other ways of looking at it that just aren't as intuitive. So time is fluid. There's fluid dynamics involved with everything around that. And energy becomes fluid depending on the potentials. So mining. When I was at the COP21 event, the Paris Climate Accords, I stopped and talked to a booth there that said mining, and I honestly thought they were out of South America. But it was an organization out of California that covers global mining issues. And they represent the natives and the indigenous and the people that live there, trying to get at least fair deals, fair labor standards, fair wages, at least, if they can shut a plant down because of poor environmental studies or concerns. So this is a different group of people I wouldn't have met if I hadn't been out there, but it was fascinating to talk to them. And I think I've sent them one letter in the many years since, but I don't have any, and what they're doing takes bigger benefactors than I could ever be. So there's folks that talk about their relationships to the rest of the world around them. Now, why uranium specifically and cesium specifically mining are among the nastiest is their isotopic abundance. which means if you dig up a ton of this dirt, you're going to harvest a gram of this resource. The ratios are unfathomable until you can kind of get a picture of a ton of dirt and a gram of dirt. A dump truck full of dirt, small dump truck, versus a tablespoon of dirt. And to get that tablespoon, there's mechanical separations and breakdowns. So you're creating very fine, very accurate dust particles and doing separations mechanically to begin with. Then you get into chemical separations so that you can further break that teaspoon of minerals out of that ton of rock. So you start leaching out minerals that you don't want. You let them settle, you let them float, you know what they're going to do because it was engineered. So 6 months later of cooking out another tube at another end of a tunnel somewhere comes a drop of cesium or uranium. In that drop of cesium are two different isotopes of cesium. I don't remember the uranium. Uranium's a higher abundance of the one isotope. I forget, but it's a rabbit hole. So, very basically, the energy, the time, and the waste byproducts of nuclear fuel creation are insidious. They are the stories of our nation's tribes because of the mineral deposits they sit on. They are the story of Karen Silkwood. It is the story of Hanford. It is the story of the many, many weapons and testing sites across the nation created during the wars and after the Cold War. So from that came the most amazing research tools that we had ever dreamed of, and there are still more to come. That is the challenge and the trade-offs and the good versus evil, and where philosophy does play a role. Tempered philosophy, let's say, educated philosophy. The yes-no answers are very hard to make. So I say no to uranium harvesting and processing. I say no to uranium and cesium fuels. I say no to double and triple boiling water. I say no to releasing these elements into the environment when we honestly have no ability to recover these things. The dilution is a solution idea is insidious because these things just don't go away. They don't break down in a day, they break down. So what you add today adds to yesterday's and is just a different animal to think of. So here's a longer one. Like I said, I mentioned I was listening to Skylar trying to rationalize why he does YouTube. Go check Skylar out. Go through I left my list open of people, find a reason to subscribe or not to like me because I'm missubscribed. It's not why I'm here. Send money though.